I thought I had everything figured out. Jake Morrison and I were 3 weeks away from our dream wedding at the Broadmoor Resort. My younger sister Madison was my maid of honor, and despite our complicated past, I believed family meant everything. Jake had been my rock for 3 years, and I trusted him completely. This weekend was his bachelor party up in Vale, and I could not wait to become Mrs. Morrison. Before I tell you how my perfect world fell apart, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe because you are going to want to hear how this unfolds. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Ruby, and at 28, I thought I had built the perfect life in Denver, Colorado. I work as a marketing manager for a tech startup downtown, and 3 years ago I met Jake at this little coffee shop near the University of Colorado campus. He was sitting alone sketching building designs on napkins, and when I asked what he was drawing, he spent 2 hours explaining his passion for sustainable architecture. Jake was 31 successful and had this way of making me feel like I was the only person in the room. Our relationship moved at the perfect pace. We got our first apartment together after 8 months, adopted a golden retriever mix named Copper from the shelter, and spent weekends hiking in the Rocky Mountains. Jake would point out different architectural styles in the historic buildings we passed, and I would share marketing strategies for his firm. We balanced each other perfectly, or so I thought. 6 months ago, Jake proposed at Red Rocks Amphitheater during a concert. The ring had belonged to his grandmother, a vintage platinum band with a single diamond that caught the sunset perfectly. I cried so hard I could barely say yes. We immediately started planning our future, a house in the suburbs, kids. Within a few years, family traditions we would create together. Everything felt destined. But I need to tell you about Madison, my 24-year-old sister, because she plays a crucial role in this story. Madison has always been what people politely call the wild child. When our parents died in a car accident 4 years ago, I was 24, and Madison was just 20. I became her legal guardian, putting my own graduate school plans on hold to make sure she could finish college. Madison is beautiful in that effortless way that makes heads turn. She has this platinum blonde hair that catches light like spun gold, and these bright green eyes that seem to sparkle with mischief. After college, she moved to Los Angeles, chasing dreams of becoming an actress. For 2 years, she bounced between waitressing jobs and auditions, living in a studio apartment I helped pay for. But Hollywood is brutal, and after a series of rejections and a bad relationship with a manipulative director, Madison moved back to Denver 6 months ago. Broke and bitter, I welcomed her with open arms, because that is what family does. She moved into our spare bedroom, temporarily, though temporary kept extending. Jake was initially hesitant about having my sister live with us, but I insisted that family comes first. Madison seemed grateful, helping with household chores, and claiming she wanted to get her life back on track. When Jake proposed, Madison was genuinely excited for us. She threw her arms around me and cried happy tears, saying she could not wait to have a brother. I asked her to be my maid of honor, because I thought it would give her a sense of purpose and stability. Madison threw herself into the role, researching wedding traditions and offering suggestions for everything from flowers to music. For 8 months, we planned our wedding at the Broadmoor Resort in Colorado Springs. I had dreamed of getting married there since I was a little girl. The venue was expensive, but between Jake's architectural firm doing well and my promotion at work, we could afford the wedding of our dreams. Every detail was perfect, from the mountain views to the crystal chandeliers in the ballroom. But during the last 2 months of planning, I started noticing changes in Jake. He became distant during our evening conversations, always checking his phone and placing it face down during dinner. When I asked about wedding details, he seemed distracted and would give vague responses. I attributed it to stress from work and wedding planning, because men handle these things differently than women do. Madison, on the other hand, seemed increasingly interested in every aspect of our wedding. She asked detailed questions about Jake's preferences for everything from food to music. When the bachelor party came up, Madison volunteered to help with the planning, claiming she knew a great catering company that could provide food for the guys at the mountain cabin. I thought it was sweet that she wanted to contribute. My best friend Caroline, who I have known since college, expressed some concerns about Madison's behavior around Jake. She mentioned noticing Madison touching Jake's arm frequently during conversations and laughing a little too loudly at his jokes. But I dismissed her worries, believing that family loyalty was more important than petty jealousies. I trusted both of them completely. The bachelor party was planned for a long weekend at a cabin in Vail that belonged to Jake's college friend. 8 guys total, including Jake's brother and his groomsmen. Madison had arranged for catering Saturday night, and she seemed unusually excited about the details. I thought she was just happy to be helpful and involved in our wedding celebrations. Friday evening arrived, and Jake was packing his bag for the bachelor party weekend. He seemed nervous, which was unusual because he typically looked forward to time with his friends. When I kissed him goodbye, he held me a little too long and avoided making eye contact. I asked if everything was okay, and he assured me it was just wedding nerves. Every groom gets them, he said. Saturday was my bridal shower, organized by Caroline and my college friends at a beautiful restaurant downtown. We had reserved the private dining room, and everything was decorated in blush pink and gold, my wedding colors. 25 women attended, including Jake's mother and sister, who had driven down from Fort Collins. The afternoon was filled with laughter, champagne, and beautiful gifts for our new home. But Madison was notably absent. She had texted me Friday night claiming she had food poisoning and would not be able to make it to the shower. I was disappointed because I had been looking forward to having my sister there for this special moment. Throughout the shower, I kept checking my phone, hoping for updates from Madison about how she was feeling. Caroline kept asking about Madison, and I could tell she was suspicious about the timing of my sister's illness. But I defended Madison, explaining that food poisoning comes on suddenly, and she was probably too sick to even text much. Jake's mother asked where my beautiful sister was, and I felt embarrassed explaining her absence. Sunday evening, Jake returned from the bachelor party acting completely different. He was quiet during dinner, picking at his food and avoiding conversation. When I asked about the weekend, he gave generic responses about how it was fine and the guys had a good time. He went to bed early, claiming exhaustion from the mountain air and too much beer. Madison was still claiming to be sick Sunday and Monday, avoiding my calls and visits. I stopped by her apartment with soup, but she did not answer the door despite her car being in the parking lot. I was starting to worry that something was seriously wrong, but she kept texting that she just needed rest and would see me soon. Monday morning changed everything. I was working from home and needed to prepare a client presentation, but my laptop was having technical issues. Jake had already left for his architecture firm, so I borrowed his laptop from his home office. I had used it before for minor things, and he had never minded. When I opened the laptop, I intended to access my cloud storage, but Jake's photo stream was automatically syncing from his phone. At first, I saw normal bachelor party photos, the guys grilling steaks, playing poker, hiking around the Vail area. I smiled, seeing Jake laughing with his friends, thinking how handsome he looked, relaxed and happy. Then I saw a timestamp from Saturday night, and my world shattered. There was a video file that had automatically uploaded from Jake's phone. My hands were shaking as I clicked play, not understanding what I was about to see. The video showed the interior of the Vail cabin, dimly lit by fireplace light. Most of the guys had apparently gone to bed because the main room was empty, except for 2 figures on the leather couch. It took me a moment to process what I was seeing, and then recognition hit like a physical blow. Madison and Jake were wrapped around each other in an intimate embrace. This was not a casual hug or innocent contact. Madison was wearing the black cocktail dress I had helped her pick out for a job interview the week before. Jake's shirt was partially unbuttoned, and they were kissing with a passion that made my stomach turn. The video was clearly taken by someone else at the party, probably as a joke, but neither Madison nor Jake seemed to care about being recorded. They were lost in each other, completely oblivious to anything else. I could hear my sister's distinctive laugh in the background, and Jake was whispering something in her ear that made her throw her head back in delight. I sat frozen, watching my fiancé and my sister betray me in the most devastating way possible. The video lasted 47 seconds, but each second felt like an eternity. My hands were trembling so violently I could barely control the laptop. My chest felt tight, and I realized I was holding my breath. But the video was just the beginning. I started scrolling through Jake's photo stream and found multiple pictures from that night showing the progression of their betrayal. Madison sitting on Jake's lap during dinner, the two of them slow dancing while the other guys played cards, a photo of them sharing a beer bottle, their fingers intertwined. I opened Jake's text messages, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. What I found there was even more devastating than the video. Madison and Jake had been flirting through texts for weeks, maybe longer. Their conversation history revealed a betrayal that went far deeper than one drunken night. Madison's messages were particularly cruel. She wrote things like, "Ruby will never find out," and "She's so naive she trusts everyone," and "You deserve someone who understands you better." Jake's responses were equally devastating, encouraging the affair and making complaints about me that I had never heard before. He called me controlling and said he felt trapped in our relationship. I discovered evidence of previous meetings. There were photos of Madison in our apartment taken when I was working late. She was wearing lingerie I did not recognize posing in our bedroom, in our living room, on our couch. The timestamps showed these photos were taken over the past month while I was putting in extra hours at work to save money for our honeymoon. The final piece of evidence made me physically sick. Madison had used my credit card, which she had access to for emergency groceries, to purchase the lingerie shown in the photos. She had bought expensive pieces from Victoria's Secret and charged them to my account using my own money to seduce my fiancé. I screenshot everything with methodical precision, despite my hands shaking with rage and heartbreak. Every photo, every text message, every piece of evidence of their betrayal. I forwarded copies to my personal email and backed them up to cloud storage. Part of me was operating on autopilot, while another part was screaming in anguish. The most devastating discovery was Madison's Instagram story from the sick weekend. She had posted a photo of herself getting ready Saturday night wearing makeup and the black dress captioned, "Tonight changes everything." She had been planning this betrayal while I was preparing for my bridal shower, selecting gifts for the home I thought we would share. Monday night, I made a decision that would surprise everyone who knew me. I was not going to confront them. I was not going to scream or throw things or demand explanations. I was going to disappear completely and let them face the consequences of their choices without giving them the satisfaction of my pain. Tuesday morning, I called in sick to work, which was not entirely a lie because I felt physically ill from the emotional trauma. I spent the day methodically planning my escape from the life I thought I wanted. I went to the bank and removed my name from all shared accounts, transferring only the money I had personally contributed to our joint savings. I contacted every wedding vendor and canceled our contracts, explaining that due to unforeseen circumstances, the wedding would not be taking place. Most vendors were understanding and agreed to refund our deposits, minus small cancellation fees. I removed my name from our apartment lease and arranged to forfeit my portion of the security deposit. The wedding fund was more complicated. We had saved $28,000 for the reception honeymoon and various wedding expenses. I calculated exactly what I had contributed versus Jake's contributions and transferred only my portion to a separate account. I was not going to steal from him, but I was not going to leave my own hard-earned money behind either. Wednesday morning, while Jake was at work, I packed 2 suitcases with essential belongings. I took my grandmother's jewelry, my college diplomas, important documents, and enough clothes to start over. Everything else could be replaced. I left the engagement ring on the kitchen counter with a simple note that said, "I know everything." I had booked a one-way ticket to Portland, Oregon, where my college roommate Sarah lived. Sarah and I had stayed in touch over the years, and when I called her Tuesday night in tears, she immediately offered her guest room for as long as I needed. I did not tell her the full story over the phone, just that my engagement was over and I needed to get away from Denver. The hardest part was saying goodbye to Copper, our golden retriever mix. I loved that dog like he was my child, but I could not take him on a plane to an uncertain living situation. I brought him to Caroline's house with his favorite toys and enough food for a week. Caroline was shocked to see me with suitcases and a dog, but when I asked her to keep Copper until Jake picked him up, she agreed without asking questions. I stopped at my parents' graveside before heading to the airport. Standing there with my suitcases, I made a promise to their memory that I would honor the values they taught me about self-respect and integrity. I would not allow myself to be diminished by people who did not deserve my love and trust. Wednesday afternoon, I sat in the departure lounge at Denver International Airport, watching planes take off and feeling numb. Part of me kept expecting Jake or Madison to come running through the terminal, begging for forgiveness. But that only happens in movies. In real life, betrayal is quieter and uglier, and healing happens slowly and far away from the people who hurt you. The flight to Portland was the longest 2 hours of my life. I stared out the window, watching Denver disappear below me, wondering if I would ever come back to the city where I had built my adult life. But as we climbed higher into the clouds, I started feeling something unexpected relief. For the first time in months, maybe years, I was making a choice based solely on what I needed. Sarah met me at Portland International Airport with tears in her eyes and the biggest hug I had received in weeks. She did not ask questions during the drive to her house in the Pearl District. She just let me cry and handed me tissues and promised that everything would eventually make sense again. Thursday morning, I woke up in Sarah's guest room to 17 missed calls from Jake and 43 text messages ranging from confusion to anger to desperate pleading. I blocked his number and felt a strange sense of power. For years, I had been available to everyone who needed me. Now, for the first time, I was prioritizing my own emotional safety. Jake discovered the missing funds when he tried to access our joint account Thursday afternoon. He found the canceled wedding vendors when the florist called to confirm our conversation. Madison realized I knew everything when she received an email containing screenshots of her own text messages sent from an anonymous account I had created. Within 48 hours of my disappearance, their perfect little secret had exploded into a nightmare of consequences they had not anticipated. Wedding guests started receiving cancellation letters in the mail raising questions about what had happened. Jake's family began calling for explanations he could not give without admitting his infidelity. Portland became my sanctuary in ways I never expected. Sarah's guest room had large windows overlooking the Willamette River, and I spent my first week there just watching the water and trying to process everything that had happened. Sarah worked as a graphic designer for a sustainable clothing company, and she gave me space to heal while gently encouraging me to start thinking about my future. 2 weeks after arriving in Portland, I found a studio apartment in the Pearl District. It was small but bright with exposed brick walls and hardwood floors that creaked in a charming way. For the first time in my adult life, I was choosing a place to live based solely on what I wanted, not what made sense for a couple or what was convenient for someone else. I found a job at a sustainable design firm that specialized in eco-friendly marketing campaigns. The work was meaningful in a way my previous job had not been. Instead of selling tech products I did not believe in, I was helping companies communicate their environmental values. My new colleagues were passionate about making a positive impact, and being around that energy slowly started healing something inside me. I started seeing a therapist named Dr. Martinez, who specialized in trauma and family dynamics. In our sessions, I began understanding how my parents' early death had shaped my need to take care of everyone around me, often at the expense of my own well-being. Dr. Martinez helped me see that Madison's betrayal was about her own insecurities and trauma, not about anything I had done wrong. Portland's outdoor culture was exactly what I needed. I bought hiking boots and started exploring the Columbia River Gorge on weekends. Standing at the base of waterfalls like Multnomah Falls, surrounded by ancient forests and mist, I felt connected to something larger than my own pain. The mountains did not care about my heartbreak, and somehow that was comforting. At work, I became friendly with Daniel, who worked in the creative department. He was 32 originally from Seattle and had moved to Portland after his own divorce 2 years earlier. Daniel had kind brown eyes and a quiet sense of humor that made me smile during difficult days. He never pushed for personal information, but when I was ready to share pieces of my story, he listened without judgment. 3 months after leaving Denver, Caroline called with updates I had not requested, but found myself curious about. Jake's architectural firm had lost their biggest client after news of the wedding cancellation spread through Denver's professional community. The client was a family-owned business with strong religious values, and they did not want to work with someone who had cheated on his fiancé with her sister. Madison's attempts to restart her acting career in Denver had failed spectacularly. Word of her role in destroying her sister's wedding had spread through the entertainment community, and no one wanted to work with someone who had that kind of reputation. The modeling agency that had been considering her dropped her immediately after learning about the situation. Jake and Madison's relationship had imploded within 6 weeks of my departure. They had tried to make it work, moving in together and attempting to build something real from their affair. But relationships built on betrayal and secrecy do not translate well to everyday life. They fought, constantly blamed each other for the destruction of their reputations, and eventually Madison moved out after a particularly nasty argument about money. Jake's family had completely ostracized Madison after learning the truth. His mother, who had always been kind to my sister publicly, called her a destroyer of families at a community event. His brother refused to speak to Jake for months, and family gatherings became tense affairs where Jake's choices were constantly questioned. Madison was forced to move back to Kansas to live with our elderly aunt, the only family member who would take her in. Small-town Kansas was a far cry from her Hollywood dreams or her life in Denver. She took a job at a local insurance office and rented a tiny apartment above a hardware store. Her social media presence, once full of glamorous photos and ambitious captions, became sparse and melancholy. Jake made several attempts to contact me through mutual friends, but I had instructed everyone to tell him I did not want any communication. He even hired a private investigator to find my location, but I had been careful to leave minimal digital traces. My new job and apartment were not connected to my previous life in any way that could be easily discovered. After 6 months in Portland, I realized something profound had shifted inside me. I was not just surviving my betrayal. I was thriving in ways I had never imagined. The independence I had gained was intoxicating. I made decisions based on my own desires and values, not on what would make someone else happy or comfortable. My relationship with Daniel developed slowly and naturally, built on genuine friendship and mutual respect. He knew my story, but did not treat me like a victim who needed rescuing. Instead, he celebrated my strength and encouraged my healing. When we finally kissed after 4 months of friendship, it felt completely different from anything I had experienced with Jake. This was based on truth and choice, not need and obligation. 8 months after leaving Denver, I received a promotion at work to lead the marketing department for a major sustainability initiative. The salary was better than what I had earned in Denver, and the work felt meaningful in a way that corporate marketing never had. I was building something real and valuable using my skills to make a positive impact on the environment. I wrote a letter to Madison that I never sent, working through my feelings with Dr. Martinez. In the letter, I forgave her for my own peace, not because she deserved it, but because holding on to anger was poisoning my own happiness. I wished her healing and growth, but I also maintained firm boundaries about our relationship. Some betrayals are too deep to repair, and that is okay. Looking back on my old life in Denver, I realized that Jake and Madison had actually done me a tremendous favor. Their betrayal had freed me from a relationship where I was settling for less than I deserved and from family dynamics that were unhealthy and one-sided. I had been so focused on taking care of everyone else that I had forgotten to take care of myself. My new life philosophy became simple trust actions, not words, prioritize self-respect over keeping the peace, and never be afraid to walk away from situations or people who do not honor your worth. I learned that vanishing is not running away when you are walking toward your true self. The woman who left Denver broken and betrayed was not the same woman who had built a new life in Portland. I had discovered strength I did not know I possessed, independence I had never experienced, and the ability to create happiness that did not depend on anyone else's choices or approval. Sometimes the worst betrayal leads to the best transformation. Madison and Jake thought they were getting away with something, but in reality they had freed me to become the person I was always meant to be. What do you think about Ruby's decision to disappear instead of confronting them directly? Have you ever had to walk away from people you loved because they betrayed your trust? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and do not forget to hit that like button if this story resonated with you. Subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming betrayal and finding strength you never knew you had, and share this video with someone who might need to hear that they deserve better than settling for people who do not value them. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is choose yourself. Wishing you all the courage to build the life you truly deserve.